Hello, YouTube! This is Jensare. Some time ago, I saw Yarrell Poof's video where he answered a Star Wars questionnaire submitted to him by another fan. And I thought they were good questions, so I decided to answer it as well. I encourage other fans to do the same if they haven't already. Let's get a meme going! In the meantime, here are the questions. Jedi or Sith? I am a hardcore Sith sympathizer. Sith philosophy just seems so much more flexible and open to interpretation than Jedi ideals, which are largely set in stone. Also, if you look at the history of the Jedi and the Sith as a whole, the Sith may be the aggressors, but the Jedi didn't play nice either. Sure, the Sith leaders may have refused to surrender at the end of the Great Hyperspace War, but that didn't call for the Jedi and the Republic to attempt to utterly destroy their empire, commit cultural genocide, and attempt to exterminate the Sith race. The Sith may have performed similar atrocities, but I'm more willing to accept their pragmatic and practical reasonings and explanations over the fundamentalist bullcrap spewed by the Jedi. So, I would be a Sith. Favorite world? Coruscant. I'm a city boy at heart. After Coruscant, I like Korriban for its wind-swept deserts and the chance to explore one of the ancient Sith tombs. I also like Ziost because I like cooler places, less plants to trigger my allergies, and no bugs. Type of lightsaber, lightsaber color, and lightsaber fighting style. My chosen lightsaber type would be paired lightsabers, two lightsabers that join together to form a double blader. This sort of weapon provides so many options. I can wield a single blade, dual lightsabers, a saber staff, or join the hilts but only trigger one blade and wield a long-handled lightsaber. My chosen lightsaber color would be a deep sapphire blue, as the other colors just seem too garish to me. My chosen lightsaber fighting style would be Djem So, because I like the straightforward, strength-oriented nature of the style. There's no messing around with a Djem So stylist. I would back this up with Ataru, using the acrobatics and footwork to compensate for Djem So's lack of mobility. Favorite species? You know what? I honestly don't know. As far as my preferences for characters and groups go, I am blatantly biased in favor of Force sensitives, considering those lacking such abilities, or the ability to compete with such beings, as not worthy of my time or attention. As such, I don't care what species a character is part of, as long as he or she can wield the Force, or has the necessary skills and disciplines required to compete with those who can. So, my favorite species would be Force sensitives in general. Favorite vehicle? The Sith Meditation Sphere. A living ship that's controlled by thought, can reshape and reassemble itself in situ to create whatever I need, and focuses Force energy, making me more powerful? I'm in. If I were a Jedi, which master would I want? Rom Koda. I find that Koda is so much more practical and go-to than most Jedi, and I actually like his ideas for how things should be done. To him, the Jedi need to take a much more proactive role in galactic affairs, rather than just meditating on the Force and occasionally acting as diplomats, an idea I agree with wholeheartedly. If the Jedi knew how to run their show, the Revenge of the Sith would never have happened. But the thing is, they didn't, and while the Order as a whole got what was coming to it, those Jedi I see as being in the right, like Ram Koda, suffer for it. If I were a Sith, which master would I want? Either Darth Plagueis or Darth Traya. No matter what, the lifestyle of a Sith apprentice is going to be a harsh one, but I want a teacher who at least encourages critical thought, rather than just trying to turn me into either a carbon copy of himself or a mindlessly obedient tool. And both Plagueis and Traya have a very philosophical bent. In terms of the benefits that I would experience, I would have to pick Plagueis, because he would acknowledge me as an equal partner at the conclusion of my training, an idea that I'm much more open to than Palpatine, plus the whole immortality thing. I could handle Plagueis' continued presence if it meant living forever. Just to go off on a tangent, it's kind of interesting that my chosen Jedi Master is a hardcore militant, but my chosen Sith Masters are philosophers. Kind of an odd reversal when you think about it. Just a little bit of personal psychoanalysis. What would my Sith name be? I have a number of potential ideas, but one of my favorites is Darth Redivivus. Redivivus is Latin for reconstructed, and I chose it because it is my belief that when you join the Sith, you are remade into a new person entirely. Nothing that came before matters, because you are now something new and better. Now you have a complete, fresh start. Favorite Star Wars movie? Revenge of the Sith. As a Sith sympathizer, the execution of Order 66 makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, as these Jedi hypocrites get their just desserts. I also live for lightsaber duels, and in terms of sheer quantity, Revenge of the Sith does not disappoint. I'm not saying that this movie is perfect, but it's what I've always wanted to see. A story where the bad guys not only win, but completely dominate. My least favorite Star Wars film. I'm split between The Phantom Menace, which feels like Lucas was just making it up as he went along, and Attack of the Clones for the terrible romance scenes and the blatant misuse of Christopher Lee. Believe it or not, I don't actually hate the Clone Wars movie, because it managed to exceed my expectations, though that just means my expectations were rock bottom, which isn't saying much. However, that movie has since carved out a niche as a guilty pleasure. If I could write my own Star Wars novel, what would it be about? I would write something set during the era of Darth Ruin's rise to power. What you have to remember is that the old Sith were extinct when Ruin rose to prominence, so he was essentially attempting to resurrect a dead culture. This is the point where the Sith shifted from a society opposing the Republic to an order specifically opposing the Jedi. The true Sith of old may have established the core tenets of Sith philosophy, but what did Ruin do with them? How did he and his followers interpret them? These are the Sith that all the Sith of the future are descended from. These are the trailblazers who laid the groundwork for the Brotherhood of Darkness, the Order of the Sith Lords, and the One Sith. All of these organizations were ultimately descended from Ruin's new Sith Empire, and have next to nothing to do with the original Sith. I find this era absolutely fascinating and would love to write about it, and the fact that it hasn't already been written about is something I find incredibly surprising. Which film has my favorite soundtrack? Revenge of the Sith. It has the most interesting and active music out of all of the films, and to me, it never strays into anything sappy or silly. Looking at you, Return of the Jedi, it's a true orchestral masterwork. Do I collect figures? No. I've been given figures, but I do not actively collect. What are the best things about the expanded universe? To me, that would be its detail and how it fleshes things out. Even the prequel trilogy is changed when I see the events that are taking place off screen, and suddenly these terrible movies become tolerable. I like the breadth of the EU, the fact that there is just so much history to the Star Wars universe, that the events of the movies are reduced to footnotes, which, especially in the wake of the prequel trilogy, is something I consider a good thing. I'm actually in that radical zone where I say the movies should be pushed aside to accommodate the EU, not the other way around. I love the darkness of the EU. This is a point where Yarrow Poof and I disagree. He dislikes the overwhelming focus on the darker aspects, whereas I love it. I say, bring us more. Bring the darkness. Bring the realism. Turn the Jedi into hypocrites and make us wonder who is right. Make us wonder if maybe the Sith might be a better choice to lead the Republic after all. What are the worst things about the expanded universe? Yarrow Poof named them. Too many people working on the same things. All these guys wanting to add stuff to the Clone Wars era because they want to work with the classic characters from the movie, and they've just hit the point where all they're doing is muddling continuity. In fact, that is my primary criticism of the Clone Wars TV series. It not only muddles continuity, but actively shits all over the original Clone Wars material. I can only imagine how much retconning is going to have to be done to rectify the damage that train wreck is causing. Like giving Ayla Secura a French accent? What the hell were these guys smoking? What does Star Wars mean to me? For me, Star Wars is a frame of reference through which to view the real world. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some deluded loony with his head in the clouds. I can understand the difference between fiction and reality, despite what my uncle says. But given that I know so much about Star Wars, it's just easier to use it as a lens or framework to organize my thoughts. To me, Star Wars is social commentary, philosophical examination, and political allegory, all in one. Not to mention examination of martial arts, which is cool. Anywho, these are just my opinions, and feel free to chime in. In fact, I encourage it. I encourage you to chime in. Chime in. Make video responses. Give me your answers to this questionnaire. Start a meme. This is Jensare, signing off.